Welcome to the SRS Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron J. Babiar, and I'm the Training Director of Support Raising Solutions. Whether you're a new ministry worker or a veteran looking to increase your competence and confidence, Support Raising Solutions seeks to bless you in your quest to be a spiritually healthy, vision-driven, fully funded Great Commission worker. Today, I'm once again joined by my friend, Andrew Nobauer, who is a Canadian, and we do not hold that against you at all, sir.
Oh, thank you.
In fact, love having you on here. I know that you get to work with CCO, and you've had an opportunity to, train boot camps and coach people in support raising. So it's just always an honor to have you on.
Oh, thank you. It's I feel honored that you ask.
Well, before we get jumping in, let's let people continue to get to know you a little bit. The last time we had you on a podcast, you mentioned that you're a hockey fan. So when you're not doing the hockey thing, and maybe you even get a ray of sunshine with no snow way up there in the frozen north, what are some of the hobbies, inside or outside? Like, what are some of the things that you like to do with your time?
So I love hiking and climbing. So one of my favorite things to do is to be able to go out with my daughter and take her on a walk and kind of show her nature. She's 2 and 7 months. So she's kind of just started putting things together now. Mm-hmm. And I've never thought that I would see the world with such wonder in my life. And as I am watching my daughter think, bird, Papa, what is that? Is that? And just going through these woods, a 5-minute walk turns into an hour-long adventure.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Now, how long have you been married?
I've been married for 4 years.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, this upcoming May.
That's great. So you are totally a young married, but not that young. And I know you're an experienced support raiser. You raised, I should say, your full support, and you live off your support.
Yes,
how long has it been since you started raising your support? I'm curious.
So I'll be coming up on 8 years this August. I'll have been living off of support.
Okay. So you successfully traversed being a single adult who raised and lived off support to being a married adult to being a married with child adult. So
yes, it's been a unique journey. That is for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure along the way, as you've had to maybe add a little more support here and there with, life and ministry expenses going up over time, like they tend to do. I know that, you had a support raising presentation 8 years ago, and I'm sure it's been tweaked. I'm sure it's been changed. I'm sure it's been adjusted over the years. And it's actually why I wanted to ask you on today, Andrew, is just to kind of talk about, how can people take stock of their presentation? How can they make it from being, it's okay, to something that, it's more like a conversation. It's more like an amazing conversation and less like a canned okay presentation.
Yeah, exactly. We never want our presentations to kind of come off like a university lecture, right. Or maybe a bad, and I'm going to emphasize this, a bad homily, because there are lots of really great ones out there. We have a lot of great preachers out there, but every once in a while, maybe you'll come home from service on Sunday and you'll think to yourself, that was less than ideal. And we want our support presentations to be a life-giving experience for our donors. We want them, and for ourselves, really, a life-giving conversation with God and with our donors.
Yeah. I tell you what, I have sat through too many talks or, sermons or homilies or whatever you want to call it, where I've walked away from it going, there was truth in there, but it didn't really do anything for me.
Thinking more about the donuts at the end.
Yeah. And I never want to approach worship services with an attitude of entertain me. Like, that's not where I want to be at all. But you can tell when there's a difference between something that was really, really well prayed through and thought out and presented versus something that was, just a passion point for somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so often I'll be meeting with a missionary, and maybe they've been out support raising before for a fair amount of time, like myself. If 8 years is a fair amount of time, I'm not sure anymore. And they'll be giving this presentation. I'll be reviewing it, and it's more of a history lesson. It's like, I've been here, done this, went over here. I'm abandoned to the Lord's will in this call. And it kind of comes off as like a little of, it's so polished and so canned that it no longer seemed authentic, right? It kind of like, I'm like, well, that's great about what you did, but what are you doing?
Right. Yeah.
Where are you going?
I like how you put it. It's just a history lesson, and it's supposed to be so much more than that.
Exactly. Yeah. We need to be leading with vision in these presentations, right? I was talking yesterday to a young missionary. He's entering his second year on staff with us. And he was kind of just sharing with trepidation about his support raising interval that was coming up in 3 or 4 weeks from now. And he said, Andrew, how do I make my presentation better? What can I do? How do you do things in MPD when you don't really want to do it? And I said to him, I was like, well, why? Like, when we're starting our presentations, like we have to begin with the end in mind. Well, why are you doing this? What brought you into the mission field? For myself, I was 18 years old. I was on a college campus, and I saw a pretty girl, and then all of a sudden,
already this whole conversation is fraught with danger.
Don't worry.
You're college age and you saw a pretty girl. A lot of people just turned up their phone, their podcast a little bit. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. And so I was talking to her, and she pointed out this ministry, and that said, hey, do you want to go get a free bag of chips? And I was like, okay, sure. I'm 18. I'm always hungry. And so we got a bag of chips, and that's actually how I got involved with CCO. I wasn't looking for CCO. CCO found me. God found me there. And I relate this story because I knew where I was at that time. I knew that I was aching for more. I was living a party lifestyle. I was living a lifestyle that was so far from my Father, so far from his heart. And I shared that ache with my donors in my presentation. I share that ache with them that, I work with college students to say, how many college students do you know that have walked away from their faith, that are constantly assaulted in trying to hold on to their faith at university, and that they leave the home and they leave church never to return again?
Yeah, you're really asking people for what sadly is a bit of a shared experience of, hey, I've seen this, I experienced this. Have you seen this? You're bringing them into your story.
Yeah, exactly. We call it the need, right? Like we have the 7 crucial components of a conversation, and it's really the need. We want them to resonate with the bad news of why our ministry have to exist, of the fact that there is sin and brokenness and separation in our world, right? Because it's a lived human experience, as you're saying. And so when we're going into these presentations, we need to be close to the why behind our ministry. Yeah. We need to immerse ourselves in it, and we need to not kind of manipulate our donors, but we need to share that ache because it's the Father's ache.
Yeah.
And invite them into it with us.
Hey, as a caveat, I know that you mentioned, some crucial components, and you even said the number 7, and I'm sure we have people listening going, wait, what? Wait, where is that? Hold on. Is there notes? So I'm just going to unpack this really quickly. At SRS, we really believe that the process of becoming a spiritually healthy, vision-driven, fully funded Great Commission worker really involves you engaging multiple sensory and educational things. So one is, we want you reading just a ton of Bible verses. We want you reading the God Ask book or Funding Your Ministry by Scott Morton. There's some good resources out there personally that we believe you need to do. Secondly, we really believe people need fantastic training. Now, obviously, Support Raising Solutions offers our SRS boot camps. They are almost monthly throughout the U.S., and occasionally we might have them internationally. We're working on doing more of those. But in reality, that's not the only type of training out there. I'm just a little bit more tied into that because I've had many people say, hey, this is the best training I've ever been to, bar none, period, about any topic. I get a chance to be a part of doing them. And believe me, it's not great because of me, but it's just a great training. So we want everybody to have training. And that is one place where we get into and we really unpack what are crucial components of a great presentation. We spend a good amount of time within the boot camp helping support raisers to understand even what is a great presentation and what doesn't need to be involved more often than not. And the third thing is we think everybody needs, you need coaching, you need accountability, you need some ongoing relationship post boot camp. But that's kind of getting off to a side. But Andrew, because you brought it up, I just thought that's probably a pretty important point that we needed to come back to, is helping people that are maybe still just figuring out this whole support raising thing, helping them understand, hey, reading a book or having a coach, that's not the same thing as getting trained.
Exactly.
You need training in all of this. Exactly.
And so, I mean, we give the SRS boot camp at our training, and the crucial components of a presentation, I should say, is my favorite part of boot camp, because it's such a directly applicable skill that you can have. And so it really does, I would encourage all of our listeners to really to take the time to go to a boot camp to review those 7 crucial components of a presentation while you're there, because I guess we're on a podcast, so you can't see me, but I was going, they're giving the thumbs up to my computer screen.
Nice. Yeah. And there are a lot more components that could be a part of a presentation, but we're not going to get into that here today. We just feel like there's at least 7 that probably should be a part of every great support raising presentation / conversation.
I want to interrupt this podcast for a brief heads up. This is Steve Shadrack, author of The God Ask. Support Raising Solutions is running a contest to win an SRS swag pack. Go check out our past podcast episode number 29 to get details on how you can get involved and possibly win some fun Support Raising Solutions swag, including a $100 gift card.
If you get to help others as they're raising their support, a fair question to consider is, who's helping you? Who's pouring into you and helping you increase your capacity and ability as a support-raising leader, trainer, or coach? May I suggest that you be sure that you're a part of the SRS network, because it can be a matter of access. Access to a discount to the Support Raising Leaders Conference, access to the online course SRS Foundations, and access to the SRS Network member resource page. The SRS Network is designed to resource you and connect you with others who are also trying to develop support raisers for the Great Commission. Make sure that you are a part of the SRS Network.
Really, like when we're about to go into a presentation, a good thing to do is to really remind yourself of the why. Why am I doing this support raising? Why does my ministry exist? And as you're resonating with that, as you're taking the time to reflect on maybe your own story, you want to share that with your donor of like, this is why we exist. And when they're resonating with it too, you can ask them questions of, this is the need as we see it today. How do you identify with this need? How do you interact with this? How has this come up in your life? And then you can say, and this is why we exist. This is why I'm here today. It's to solve this problem. It's to bring Jesus's light, his word, his truth, his glory into this brokenness. And your donors will respond really well because they're responding out of their own experience of it. And it's such a beautiful thing. It's not just a canned thing where they're hearing about you. You tap into their emotions, and not to manipulate them. Goodness gracious, that's not the point. No. But it is to help them feel, not just logically think about, but connect, to feel, to go, oh,
Okay, I get it. You talk about college students. I've heard people give great presentations. They're talking why clean water is important, and with clean water, how you need to be getting it from a good source, and then they tie that into there are people that don't have access to clean water physically, but also they haven't had access to spiritual water, to Jesus, and by giving them this, we can give them that. And have you ever been really thirsty? Have you ever been in a place where you just couldn't get a glass of water? How did you feel? Like sometimes those type of things is what helps our donors or potential donors not just feel like somebody that's happened to watch a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, asking questions is such an amazing way to really engage your donor. It's that idea of you're building a relationship with them. It really does make it personal. It does help you become friends with them.
Yeah.
And take that relationship just a little bit further than maybe if you gave a 20-minute presentation, even if it was amazing and there was no interaction. And it can be used for anything, like any organization, because there's a reason that the Father has inspired that in your heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, if your presentation at the end feels like that, if the whole thing felt like a presentation, that should probably be at least a yellow light to you that you still need to grow. Because quite honestly, over time, hopefully your presentation feels a little bit more like a conversation, not something pre-canned, right?
Yeah, exactly. A good sign is when you walk out of a meeting with somebody and you thought to yourself, wow, that was awesome.
Yeah. Whether they give or not, that was awesome.
Like I feel so like I just made a new friend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That I might never have met otherwise.
Yeah. Cool.
Another thing that it's such a practical thing in your presentation is taking stock of your body language. So I don't know if you've ever had this, Aaron, where my resting face is angry. My resting face is communicating anger.
I've been meaning to talk to you about that. I feel bad.
And so something I've just noticed, especially with my new staff, is take stock of how you're coming across, because you could think that you're the friendliest, happiest person in the world, and what is actually coming across. And I know this because it's come up in my performance evaluation, is Andrew's really like intense.
Yeah.
Really angry.
not really what, not the reaction you're looking for.
No, exactly. Yeah. You don't want, I mean, sure. If you're intense, yeah, like that's good. Like I do still tend to come across as intense, but it's a joyful intensity. I'm a happy, intense worker for the Lord. I'm not an angry, intense worker for the Lord.
Oh yeah. By the way, since we're doing self-disclosure, so I'm busy, but I don't like wearing busyness as like a merit badge on my sleeve. Like I just don't see value in being like, hey, I'm busy. Sometimes I'm just trying to communicate the variety of things that I get to do for the kingdom, from boot camps to podcasts to webinars for support raising coaches. And just there's a handful of other things I do. But recently I think I just gotten back from Charlotte, North Carolina, where we had a boot camp. And then I was headed out to a closed country. And then anyway, I was just kind of going through a few things, not even listing everything out, just a handful of things that I was working on, because I know supporters sometimes want to know, so what is it you're doing? And somebody asked, like, so what do you got coming up? And I think I talked for 30 seconds, and the lady I was talking to, her mouth dropped open and she was like, when do you sleep? And I was like, yeah, I'll get to that.
I think I've got that scheduled in for Christmas.
But right. But, I realized in that, I might have overshared a little bit. I might have almost, I don't think she was questioning my work ethic. I think I moved, if anything, I might have moved from, proving that I'm working for the kingdom to she was concerned for me. and I was thankful that, she had that concern, but also, I also felt like then I had to explain, hey, my marriage is going great. My wife is with me 100%. I'm not gone too much. Usually my trips are 3 days or less. And usually they're only once every few weeks. So like, I kind of like, not that I was on the defensive, but I realized, I need to be more careful. Next time I talk about that particular topic, I need to be careful how I explain that so I don't accidentally cause more questions of concern.
Yeah, for sure. It's so important to, especially when we're interacting with our donors, like, well, how, and thinking to ourselves, well, how am I coming across? Just like you would in ministry, right? If you're going into, a closed country, you're probably thinking to yourself, like, well, what can I do to, like, how am I coming across here? Right. Just taking that time to think through, your actions. The Bible says a lot about doing that too.
Yeah. It's there's a lot to think about. And quite honestly, I don't want everybody to be all overwhelmed now because you grow in this over time, don't you, Andrew? It's not like something that you're going to get this down, spend a couple days and then you're good. No, the sort of thing that it's more of a skill set that's learned to not have a manipulative presentation, but to have a life-giving, vision-driven presentation.
Exactly.
It takes time.
Exactly. It takes time. Like, a great thing to do, no matter how long you've been support raising for, no matter if you've been fully funded for 36 years or for 1 month, or you're not fully funded yet, is to get somebody to review your presentation with you. Just pull a coworker aside and say, hey, I'm about to go on an interval and take some MPD time. Can I just practice my presentation with you? Because there's a couple things I'm trying to work on, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a really good thing to do. And you can say, my body language, how am I coming across right now? Am I coming across as like, I was hoping to come across as happy. What was I coming across as? Getting feedback, it's so important, but do it one day at a time, one presentation at a time. You don't have to fix your presentation entirely or change everything about yourself entirely. It's about working and incorporating things as we're on the journey. The Christian walk is a journey. It's a path. It's one day at a time.
Yeah. Cool. Well, brother, I think we go on and on about this, but I think we actually already hit an awful lot. So it's probably enough for this week's podcast. I'm sure I'll have you on again as a guest in the future. I really appreciate your wisdom and your demeanor and your A through Z's sometimes and things like that. Love my Canadian friend. But hey, I want to give you the final word. Any final words of wisdom, knowing that we have some people out there who might be a little newer to raising support, as well as some grizzled veteran types who are realizing they need to tweak their presentation / conversation style.
Yeah, the thing I would say is remember your why. Why are you doing this? And remember the basics of support raising. Making sure that you're making a clear ask. Will you support me for $100 a month? And taking that space to let them respond. Yeah.
Because we've definitely found that a clear ask involves clarity. And in fact, we even encourage people to offer a range, 100 to 150 a month, some sort of range. But like you said, let them respond. You don't have to fill in the gaps with more talk, but allow them to process through what they're going to do with that and be prepared for their various responses, which that brings us back to SRS boot camp training. So anyway, hey brother, thanks again for joining us today. I really appreciate it. God bless you and the work you do for the kingdom.
Thanks. God bless you too, Aaron.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. We would love to hear your ideas for future content. Please visit supportraisingsolutions.org/feedback to share your thoughts and questions. Also, wherever you download your podcast from, be sure to subscribe for future episodes and come back each week to gain more insight into the process of building and maintaining your personal support team.